I think what's more interesting for me and where my curiosity goes is, so then did you go to college for meteorology? Is that where what degree you originally intended on getting?
That's what I originally intended on getting. Yeah, I was accepted to Florida State, University of Miami. I don't know, like I applied to like 10 schools. So I was accepted to all of them. I was really excited. But Valencia College here in Orlando made me a deal I couldn't say no to. I was going to be paid to go to college. I got 2 full rides to go to Valencia. So I stayed here and I worked full time in a law office as I went to school full time. And then that just like opened up a whole new world of possibilities.
Hey everybody, Tyler Gibson here. Today on the Orlando podcast, I have Amy Calendrino, owner of Beyond Commercial. Super excited to chat with her. Thanks for being here, Amy.
It's awesome to be here.
Awesome. So we're going to start off the same way we always do. Amy, I got to ask, why is it that you do what you do?
It's interesting. My husband and I had a discussion about this last night, but I just love solving problems and well, more so not solving problems, but finding a great solution. And so I found that the commercial real estate market was really underserved. And so it's been my mission to provide a better solution for that for business owners and investors.
So you do it because you love finding solutions. Do you remember when you came to the realization that you enjoyed finding solutions?
Oh, at what age? So we actually, or just as far
Yeah,
as
yeah. Like if you know the day and time, that's
oh
even
yeah, I
better, right?
So, I was originally going to be a meteorologist and not one of those on TV. I was super into hurricanes. I tracked every single hurricane, the millibars and BAD, and super hyper technical about that. But when Hurricane Andrew came through in 1992, there was a huge loss of lives and everything. And I thought, there must be a better, way to predict the hurricanes to help like save lives. And so I was originally actually going to do that. And that was why I did that. And along the way, I got, I changed degrees while in college. But really, at the end of the day, I just really want to help people. And I've just loved finding great solutions. And so that was at an early age. That was my why, and to solve that problem. And it's been constant ever since. I need to do that.
So that's really interesting. I think what's more interesting for me and where my curiosity goes is, so then did you go to college for meteorology? Is that where what degree you originally intended on getting?
That's what I originally intended on getting. Yeah, I was accepted to Florida State, University of Miami. I don't know, like I applied to like 10 schools. So I was accepted to all of them. I was really excited. But Valencia College here in Orlando made me a deal I couldn't say no to. I was going to be paid to go to college. I got 2 full rides to go to Valencia. So I stayed here and I worked full time in a law office as I went to school full time. And then that just like opened up a whole new world of possibilities, which then exposed me to, real estate's very much involved with the law. And, there's a lot of real estate transactions that have to do with that. And then that is what really set me on my way to finding out about real estate.
I'm exhausted thinking about your college life because I don't know that I've ever worked that hard at anything in my life to hold down a full-time job and college at the same time. That seems like a lot. I know people do it. I didn't. So what did you end up changing your degree to if you moved out of meteorology? Did you move it into real estate specifically, or was there something else that you ended up doing?
Yeah, so I did take a couple real estate classes in Valencia during like the summers and such, but really at the beginning, I was taking all the way to Physics 3 and Calculus 3 when I first started and working in the law office. I can't do calculus anymore. I don't know how I did it back then, but When I got to the end of that, I met a really cool person who ended up working in the law office with me, and he was going to Rollins. And I was like, "This seems great. It's like right close to like downtown." And I was like, "If I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do the best at it." And so English is the best degree at Rollins. Of course, it's the hardest. I also am a glutton for punishment. I like challenges, so I ended up going for meteorology to get an English degree with a writing minor. And so reading like 20 books a semester. And yeah, because I thought at that point I might be a lawyer.
Oh, okay. So, meteorologist at Valencia Community College, Rollins College, English and writing. How do you jump to real estate from all of that?
So I was working in the law office, and we needed, you need real estate to like have an office, and we ended up putting some people in the server closet because we like ran out of room, and it was very inflexible. Once you run out of room, you ran out of room, and I was like, what? And like just kept seeing all these deals happening, and so I talked to some people, and I said, what's all like involved with that? And I decided that I really wanted to kind of get into this. And so I had a friend who his name's Franco Ferrari. He's still around. He actually just closed like a development deal a few weeks ago with my friend. But he was like my mentor and ended up being my broker to qualify my brokerage. I've actually never worked for anyone except for Franco, I guess, because he was my broker in the beginning. But he qualified my brokerage, and I started, learning all about real estate. And I will say one thing. I think listeners might be like, okay, what is she going to do next? But let me tell you what, commercial real estate is the first thing. This is the first thing in my life that I'm actually really like content in because it's just, there's so much to learn and so much to grow from. But then I was able to work with people more strategically so they don't have to put people in the server closet.
Awesome.
And worry about that employee maybe coming and like killing you in the middle. Just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah,
in all seriousness. But I mean, like we were double, tripling people in offices, and we were out. But to sublease a space and to go lease another space, and the disruption of business, and we just kind of had to like ride it out. And kind of like a hurricane, you just got to ride it out, right? So we just had to ride it out to the end. But then I figured there must be a more strategic way of making a better decision from the beginning, and to get a better result that's a little bit more elastic and flexible for someone.
So did you get your license prior to graduating from college, or was it while you were still studying for your degree?
During the summer, I was, got it. I took my first real estate class in 2004 while I was still at Valencia. But then I took it again in 2007 because I think it has to be within a certain amount of time. And then I sat for the license in 2007. And then in 2010 is when I launched it. So, because we were going through a space needs assessment. So I went through for the law firm, I was figuring out, do we lease or do we buy? What makes the most sense? And, I led us through that transaction. That was like my first like transaction, and then I started doing other stuff.
Were you still employed by the law firm when you helped them make that transition?
Yeah, and by the way, guys, the law firm is Forward Law Firm, so
okay.
It's my husband's firm. But yes, and actually, when I very first started, I was doing both because I was already accustomed to going to school full time, working full time. What's the big deal about doing two things at the same time? So yeah, I was doing both, and just kind of scaling. I eventually, I would say around 2014, 2015, then I was predominantly, I would say 75 to 80% just commercial real estate. And then now basically 100%.
Right.
I get some calls every so often asking me about something super historical. Cause I mean, I worked there from like 2003. So they call me their like human computer because I can remember like what year someone had a litigation case, and who was the opposing counsel, and the other day I saw a friend and he's like, yeah, I bought a new building, and I told him the address for the building. And he's like, what? You were so weird. But yeah.
Well, some people have gifts. Yours is you can just remember things.
Yeah, I just remember things. So, yeah. I have not run out of CPU usage yet. So,
Well, that's good. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I have this understanding, or maybe it's just a misconception, but I understand that most of commercial real estate is dominated by male figures. Is that correct?
Yes.
Inform me a little bit on that, and if that's the case, talk to me about some of the challenges of being a woman in a man's world, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, when I first started, I was disrespected a few times, and it was when I was a female paralegal. There are a lot of female paralegals, and I was certified at it. I was actually president of the paralegal section, or I was very much respected. And when I got into commercial real estate, I was basically starting at like zero and trying to reestablish myself. And sometimes I would call people and they would say, are you taking a break from showing houses, sweetheart? Like, this is commercial. And like, I would totally be mansplained. And, but the listeners have heard me already. I'm super detail oriented, and I am probably going to over research something and be way more over prepared. And so, representing my clients to the best of my ability was just first and foremost. And so I studied very much. I was just very much disrespected, and a lot of sweethearts, a lot of honeys, a lot of, oh, so do you do houses too? And even houses, I mean, that's not a little deal. I mean, that's a big investment for a family, whether you're investing or it's for your house. And so then them even marginalizing that. So yeah, I dealt with that. I also had, guys catcalling me and different things. And yeah, it was quite an adjustment, but I think you have that in every field. But yeah, you do sometimes have some of the older players. And so then that was when I actually decided to get my CCIM, which is like a board certification in commercial real estate. And I would say since that's happened, which requires that you have a portfolio of experience, and so since that's happened, it's really diminished. But it did affect my ego, but in the way that it really made me say, all right, I am going to prove these people wrong. So
sometimes there's no better motivation than somebody telling you you can't, or telling you that you're not good enough, to really give you that, I'm going to show them. And I think for me, when I encounter that, I certainly, just like any human, think to myself, I'm going to show them. I try to take a step back from that and change it to, I'm going to show myself that they don't know what they're talking about. I'm going to prove it to myself that I know exactly what I'm doing. And I'll play humble pie if we ever have a conversation, because that wasn't the point. The point is always to service the client and do whatever it is. That's really interesting and fascinating to know, and you're right. The CCIM is, in the real estate world, it's one of the highest designations you can have. It basically proves that you have, very in-depth knowledge to all the math and the analysis that goes into commercial real estate. So kudos on you. It sounds like a terrifying endeavor to take on something that big. Then again, I don't love school, as we mentioned earlier. So, but today, as your business continues to grow, how many people do you have on as a part of your team now?
So I have a fractional CFO, a fractional chief people officer. Then I consider them all part of the team, even though they're outside. And then I have I think 2 marketing coordinators, a brokerage coordinator, a content coordinator, and then we're expecting a couple more interns. What am I up to? I don't know. And then I have 8 agents. So I think we've been hovering around 12 to 15, depending on whether we have interns. I think the next big inflection point may be like when we get closer to like 20, including like our outside contract folks that fulfill certain functions.
Okay. So
which is pretty. I think I'm considered the largest independent women-led commercial brokerage here in Orlando now. So
that's awesome. Congratulations. I'm curious about the fractional people that you mentioned that are part of your team. Explain to me a little bit about how that works and why you chose to go a fractional route. I mean, I've not heard of somebody calling, using that term. And so, as a business owner myself, I wonder, okay, well, fractional, that sounds interesting. How could I leverage that? And maybe there's somebody listening to this and they're like, I need a people person, but I don't have, I need an HR person, but I don't have full-time work for an HR person because I don't hire every week or every day or whatever it looks like. So how did you come to that decision? Where did you find those people? I think that's fascinating.
Hey, before we go any further, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe so you can help us get the word out about these amazing people and businesses here in the Orlando area. Don't miss out on upcoming episodes and help out the show. Now let's get back to it.
I love to learn. So in the middle of COVID, I was tuning into a CEO roundtable and they had, well, first of all, I found the chief financial officer because my husband has his law firm. I have my commercial real estate firm. And then we have interests, we own a building and then, we were considering doing, we may eventually have other business on top of that. But just having visibility on where we were, we both knew we wanted to grow. But obviously to hire, someone like that on staff, you're talking, 6-figure, salary. So I was tuning in and it was talking all about, having certainty in the midst of COVID. And it was presented by Brooke Evans of CFO Alliance. And I was like, CFO Alliance, that's really interesting. And so I had a needs assessment with them. They're very similar to my brokerage where they're concierge, they're boutique. And so it's led by the CEO, Brooke Evans, but she has a team of chief financial officers and different financial people, depending on what needs to be done for the organization. And they'll craft a scope of work to suit the needs of your organization. And so, it's like, certain months when, like, for instance, right now we're going to be going into preparing our budget for 2023. She's going to be more busy and like putting in more work to that. The next thing we did bring in a chief human resources person. And we were first using like a solo consulting, but we kind of felt like that's kind of the same thing as hiring an office manager where you're asking them wear all these hats and they're not like exceptionally good at everything. Mm-hmm. So we ended up finding a company called Griffin Resources. And so it's Griffin-Resources. And I talked to, is it Melissa or Melanie? Oh my gosh. Michelle Griffin. And she has a team of about 15 too. And she's concierge boutique. So it's awesome. I've been able to align with other organizations like my own. She has a couple payroll people. She has recruiters on staff. And then she has like managers and different people. And then they draft the scope to meet what your organization needs. And so it's wonderful. And so if I end up with an issue that needs to be, handled, then she'll have the right person within her organization, handle it. And they just send me a bill and I just pay for it at the end of the month. And I think the amount that I pay monthly to have it and the level of service that I get is still far less than I would pay to have someone on full time here. Even at their hourly rates. It's just phenomenal. So
that's really interesting to leverage a team model like that, where they're essentially a part of your team, but mm-hmm. they're not employed by you. Mm-hmm. And I think COVID was such a unique time frame for any business owner and really any business to sit back and reevaluate the way that their team structures were. For me, when COVID happened, I started working from home a lot. I still had a full-time job when that happened, and we transitioned to being work from home remote. And it just made it so interesting and you could tell that it was going to be a change in the way people work. And I think in a big way it has, but it created some really unique opportunities, like you mentioned, to bring somebody on that can give you all of the services that you need from a full-time employee while not needing them to be on site, while not needing to carry that overhead of a full-time staff member. So really, really interesting. So it sounds like you and your husband are very entrepreneurial. He's got a business. Yes. You've got a business. You've got some commercial real estate holdings, some investment properties. You said you think you might start some more businesses someday. What does the perfect business look like? What's the end goal that you're trying to get to for yourself with this business, or with any other ideas that you've been noodling?
So, well, I have finally put together, I think my friends know, I have a 67-page growth plan. I put together a growth plan last year, 2021, there's a program called 10,000 Small Businesses. So if there's any small business owners listening, it's a program that you can apply for, and you can get a grant to go through basically a mini MBA and analyze all the different facets of your business and prepare you to decide upon a growth strategy. So for me, the biggest area I saw for growth for my organization would be get more listings. And so we had really developed a strong, people in the market knew that we were really good at helping users to either buy or to lease. However, we didn't have as strong of an identity on the listing side. And so really now putting together a huge marketing stack to grow that. But my end plan would be, I just want everybody in my organization to grow. So whether someone acquires it from within or otherwise, I have a 16-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. I wouldn't mind, having a little bit more bandwidth than someone else taking over as CEO, and I'm more a chairman or chairwoman, I guess, whatever, chairperson. I don't know. So I think, but more a less active role eventually, but still maintaining it, because I think we've built something really special here, where we've developed our own proprietary training program now. Kind of like some of the other residential real estate programs have, but we've done it for commercial. And I'm not really aware of a lot of other brokerages that have that. And we've made it that an agent could, upon coming to our team, close a commercial transaction in 4 to 6 weeks, potentially. On average, more like 2 to 3 months. But we've such a large lead generation program and such that we really could make our agents super successful really quickly. So
wow, that's really cool. And I think most business owners would probably agree that the end goal is to own and operate a business where you work on the business and not necessarily in the business. Yes. I know that's certainly an area where I'm trying to get to at some point. So I can resonate with that. I want to turn the conversation a little bit to commercial real estate, because there's hopefully a lot of business owners listening to this, and oftentimes business owners need a space to operate in, whether that's leasing or buying or whatnot. What is just top 3 things somebody might want to ask themselves or self-evaluate or consider if they're thinking about opening some sort of a retail space, whether it's through purchase or leasing? What's the first thing I need to do if I need to lease a space?
I think you first of all need to have a really good business plan put together for your company. It would be hard, especially in this environment, to sell yourself to a company. So having your whole branding and business plan put together. However, that's something we can guide people to getting the resources. We have a lot of people come to us in the in the early phases before they even have that put together, and we've been able to guide them to getting that put together. But having a business plan, because if you don't know your forecasted revenue, then we can't do the second thing, which is doing a rent to revenue analysis. One thing I didn't mention earlier of why I got into commercial real estate is we did a lot of litigation at my husband's company, and there were some really sad times where people would come in, and because they're getting sued by the landlord because they're not paying their rent. And we come to find out that, they fell in love with the space and they weren't very analytical about it. And they didn't do this number two. And they didn't. So number one, you got to know your numbers. You got to know your plan. And then number two, rent to revenue. You really don't want your rent, just like there's a debt to income ratio and all these ratios in residential. In commercial, you're not going to want your rent to exceed much more than 10% of your revenue. Otherwise, you're going to be eating into your marketing. And so then you're not going to have enough business coming in. Your revenue is going to suffer. Then you're not going to have enough for employees. And I think third, then of course doing, a proper needs assessment and finding the right property and really understanding what you need. But I guess that's with number one. But I definitely be more analytical about it. After all, I mean, it's just brick and mortar. It's just dirt. Don't fall in love with it. You need to really kind of distance yourself from it and think about it analytically and whether it's going to work. You don't want to 2 years from now wish that you hadn't signed that lease. That, especially if it's a closely held business, you're having to sign personal guarantees. Mm-hmm. And then you're talking about, if it doesn't work out, I hate to say this, but people having to do bankruptcy. Or you go to those businesses, sometimes there's those smoothie shops or the different things, and you find out it's the owner at the front counter. I'm sure that's not what they envisioned when they first signed the lease. And so that I didn't want people to go through that. And so you have my commitment, if you're working with me and my team, that we're going to make you do that homework so that you have the best possibility of success. Yeah. And not working behind the counter unless you want to. So
you never know. Somebody might really enjoy making smoothies and talking to people. So
right.
Such a great tip to consider, to really know your numbers and understand what your rent is going to be as a percentage of your forecasted revenue. And to not fall in love with the dirt, right?
I guess that's tip number 3. Don't
fall in love with the dirt. Got it.
And utilize the first two. The first two are your pillars, and stick to those pillars.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's so great. So, as listeners are listening to what we've talked about, maybe they're interested in starting a business. Maybe they have a business plan already. What's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you?
Well, any of the social media channels, or just email me, amy@beyondcommercial.com, or feel free to text or call the office anytime. And my cell phone's out there too, but usually calling the office is pretty good. So, okay. And it can get you on my calendar.
And we didn't have a way to kind of bring this up in conversation, but before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about some stuff that we're reading, some books that we're reading. And as I listened to you talk about your team, I heard how committed you are to this idea of who, not how, because you have such a big team.
Yes.
And, for anyone that's listening, I think you and I would both recommend that if they're a business owner, if they're an entrepreneur, they really need to read the book, Who, Not How. And because you said it off air, I thought I'd give you an opportunity to say it here for folks. So what was it that you said? Anyone that wants to listen or read Who, Not How, what was
first
it?
First 5 people to reach out to me following the airing of this podcast. I'll mail to you I'll pay the shipping, but I'll send you a copy of Who, Not How. So probably to make it easy, just send me a message on LinkedIn would probably be the easiest way to track that, so it doesn't get lost. And I can send you a copy of that at my expense. But that's one of my favorite books. And speaking of podcasts, I also have a podcast. So it's performancemindset.show. Because I found a lot of the top entrepreneurs, nobody's really an overnight success. I mean, there's many people that are thought of as titans that worked in their garage. I had, when I first started the commercial real estate brokerage, I subleased something the size of a broom closet. So, so I could have my own separate space, but it takes some time. And so just to be patient with it. And so I found those people have resiliency to them. And so that's performancemindset.show. And then, send me a LinkedIn if you want a copy of Who Not How.
And in your own words, what would people expect to learn in Who Not How?
Is that even the very most successful people need to have an amazing team around them. You think of even Michael Jordan, had Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman around him. And nobody remembers how long Michael Jordan was on that team before he really, came into the fame that they had. And I can tell you from my own business, I really did not start hockey. I call it the hockey stick, when a business really starts to hit that hockey stick. I didn't get to that point of acceleration and momentum in my business until I started bringing in other people. And when Who Not How talks about how to get the people to come up with solutions than you not necessarily being a dictator and like a taskmaster. I mean, because who wants to go around all day telling people what to do and then following up to say, did you do it? Instead, you have an idea in your mind you want to implement, and then you guys figure out how to do it.
Awesome. Cool. So cool. Well, Amy, thank you so much for taking some time to jump on with me today. Really looking forward for everyone to hear this episode. So any parting words of wisdom?
Just stay, just always stay positive and keep goals. And as long as you keep moving forward, then you can just see success. I'd say are my parting words.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks for being here, and we'll see you around Central Florida. Have a great day.
All right. Bye.